For an eternal city, this place, Rome, has a lot of ghosts still lurking around. However, more so than any other specific place in the entire city, Piazza Navona has 4 of them. And just nearby, Campo dei Fiori, there's another. So 5 ghosts within a few block radiuses in Rome. And we're going to explore the ghosts of the Eternal City today on Urbanus. I'm Ariel, and this is episode 10 of Mysteries of the Eternal City out of 12 episodes. 2 more to come. Let's explore the haunted tales of the 4 ghosts of Piazza Navona and then walk over to Campo dei Fiori and investigate the very man who decided to defy the Roman Catholic Church. But not only the Roman Catholic Church, but also 2 Protestant churches. Welcome to the Eternal City. Right now, we are facing a statue called Pasquino. And Pasquino is a very interesting statue because he's known as a talking statue. People would come here lurking in the night. We're right around the corner of Piazza Navona, and this is the streetways that lead to the Campo dei Fiori. The glass is already breaking, the ghosts are already striking. Hello Jenny, hello Gretchen, hello Kay, hello everyone. Welcome to the Eternal City for episode 10 of Mysteries of the Eternal City. Pasquino was known as a talking statue. People would sneak over here late at night to talk to Pasquino. Let's take a closer look at this statue. Because this statue, people would come here in the 1500s, but it's far older than that. This statue dates back to the 3rd century BC. That means it's possibly an ancient Greek statue depicting maybe Hercules or some other great Greek hero. But no one knows because the statue is in horrible disrepair. Why? Because it's not one of the great statues of the Baroque era like we're going to see soon in the Piazza Navona. This statue was just one of hundreds of ancient Greek and Roman statues that were found all around the Eternal City. And one particular man decided to place it right here. His name was Pasquino. Let's take a close look. Gretchen, you worry I wasn't coming. Please allow when I do these scheduled Facebook Live, sometimes 10 minutes to go live. Sometimes there's delay in buses. This statue dates back to 300 BC, 3rd century BC. No one truly knows what it is. There are theories that it is a great Greek hero like Hercules. In his arms, he has someone dying. You can see that there is another person that's supposed to be here right in this location. However, people would come here late at night and sneak to talk to the statue. The statue itself wouldn't talk, luckily. We're not getting that crazy tonight with our haunted history, or maybe we will. But they would come here and leave letters. Letters usually about politics, satire, leaving their opinions of things that were happening in Roman political life. But talking against the Pope was very taboo back in the 1500s. This statue was so hated by Pope Hadrian VI, the only Dutch Pope, that he sent people to take down the statue and throw it into the Tiber River. That never happened because people didn't like Pope Hadrian VI so much and they didn't follow his orders. So the statue stayed, and people kept coming here late into the night to leave letters. One of those letters was railing against Pope Hadrian VI, and that's why he hated it so much. People made fun of him endlessly. People made fun of countless other popes. But they made fun of one specific, unique person in the Roman Catholic Church. She was dubbed the Popessa, or the female pope. This was Olimpia Maidalchini. And Olimpia Maidalchini was the left-hand woman of Pope Innocent VI, Pope Innocent X. Now, why was she the Popessa? Well, because Pope Innocent X sought her counsel. And she had the closest word with the Pope, and people had rumors that she had the true power in the Roman Catholic Church and in the greater papal states of Rome and this area of Italy. People did not like the Popessa at all. They thought she was stealing Rome from the guise of Pope Innocent X. But how did Olimpia Maidalchini get the ear of Pope Innocent? She married his brother. Let's go right around the corner. Here is this talking statue, Pasquino. So how did it get its name, Pasquino? Well, it was a cobbler that was based right around the corner around this area. And a lot of the little kids thought that this statue looked a lot like Pasquino, the cobbler. And also the cobbler helped put the statue here. So I ended up getting the nickname. And Pasquino has become such synonymous with leaving rumors, satire, that people in Italian have a name called Pasquinate. I might be mispronouncing it, but it just means satire or slander in Italian. Christina, welcome. I'm so happy to be in your country. So everyone prepare yourselves because we're about to step into one of the most beautiful piazzas in all of Rome. But it being the most beautiful piazza also means that it has a very, very dark history, because we all know that things of beauty have darkness within them. We'll learn about a woman who was known as one of the most beautiful women in all of Rome, who had a very bad omen, who still lurks in these very plaza. Another beautiful woman back in antiquity who dared to defy the emperor herself. And she still lurks around here. And of course, the Popessa. Hello, Brenda. Hello, Denise. Welcome to Piazza Navona. The great obelisk in the center, placed by Gian Lorenzo Bernini himself, the great Baroque sculptor, architect, artist that we talked about all throughout these past few episodes of Mysteries of the Eternal City. Talked about his entire, very eventful life. And then we have two other beautiful fountains that we will explore soon, and the Church of St. Agnes. However, right here is a Museo di Roma. El Museo di Roma was the house of Pamphilio Pamphili. Pamphilio Pamphili was the brother of Pope Innocent X. He was married to Olimpia Maidalchini. But Olimpia Maidalchini was a widow. She married another man in her hometown a few years prior to ever meeting Pamphilio Pamphili. It's a very tricky name to say a lot. That man, after her giving birth to two children and then dying shortly after birth, her first husband also died. 3 people already dead in her life. A few years later, she marries Pamphilio Pamphili, one of the richest men in all of Rome. So rich he had this great, beautiful palazzo that he built. Let's take a look inside. Hello, Manuel. Welcome. So this is a Museo de Roma. Let's take a look inside to the Palazzo of Pamphilio Pamphili. So this is the great courtyard of Pamphilio Pamphili and his palazzo. This was the brother of Pope Innocent X, who first was a cardinal and then rose the ranks of pope. And Olimpia Maidalchini lived right here, living a life of pure luxury. Now, I forgot to mention that her first husband was also very well off. He was very rich. She ended up inheriting a good portion of his riches. And then she married an even richer man, the man who used to own this very place. However, just a mere short few months after being married to Pamphilio Pamphili, he dies. Out of mysterious causes. No one truly knows what happened to Pamphilio Pamphili. And of course, a good portion of his riches go to Olimpia Maidalchini. Now, since she was the widowed wife of the brother of the Pope had sympathy, and he took her in to his own inner circle. He became Pope, rose the ranks very quickly. And he liked Olimpia because Olimpia was a very stern woman. She was a woman of strong character. She knew what she wanted. And also she was very good with money. It's no coincidence. She had a lot of it. So Pope Innocent X used her as his main counsel, as his main advisor. She told him all a bunch of things about being a better financial manager of the Papal States. At that time, the Pope wasn't only the religious leader or the head of the Roman Catholic Church, but he also was the head of state of the Papal States, this area in Italy. He also had great influence over huge swaths of Europe. So he actually had to do a lot of stuff that most modern day prime ministers or presidents do. And people hated that Olimpia had the close ear of Pope Innocent X. But Pope Innocent X died just about a year after. Olimpia was still alive and very, very extremely wealthy. 3 men close to her passed away in close succession after her being close to them. What was up with that? Well, Olimpia Maidalchini came right inside here, and in the confines of this palazzo, Pope Innocent X left huge chests of gold. Massive, massive chests of gold. And apparently one night people saw Olimpia Maidalchini coming into her own house with these huge chests, loading them onto a chariot. She takes that chariot, goes out into the Piazza Navona. Rides her chariot right out through here into the Piazza Navona, rushing out. No one knows why she's such in a hurry. Gold flowing out of the chariots as she's zooming past by the piazza, never to be seen again. People to this day still say that they hear horse chariots zooming past the Piazza Navona. People say that they still see Olimpia Maidalchini's ghostly apparition on those chariots. Maybe if you're lucky, one night you'll see her yourself. However, why is the Piazza Navona oval? Well, it also has to tie into chariots, because the Piazza Navona was originally the stadium of Domitian. Emperor Domitian took over from Emperor Tacitus or Titus, who was the son of Vespasian. This was the Flavian dynasty, and it was quickly coming to a crashing halt because Domitian had the very bad graces from the Senate. The Senate did not like him at all. He built this huge stadium in order to get more favor from the people. And that's why Piazza Navona is not your normal square that's in the shape of a square. It's in the shape of a very elongated oval. Hello, Barry. Hello, Manuel. I wish that story was a movie. I like stuff like this. Oh, amazing. You're so awesome. Thank you for listening from California. Oh, Javier, thank you so much for listening. If you're just tuning in, let me know where you're watching from. Buongiorno tutti. Lou, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Chariots were riding here all through the time of Domitian. He was trying to gain the favor of the people. However, that didn't suffice, because Domitian built a massive palace, the largest one on Palatine Hill. It was so large that it ended up becoming the modern word palace. He was so paranoid that he built these huge mirrors all around his palace, asked them to be constantly polished, so polished that he's able to look if anyone was coming to kill him. Those mirrors didn't work. He was slaughtered to death by people that were hired by the Senate. The stadium of Domitian went into disrepair. And by the time of Olimpia Maidalchini, actually, let's go a little bit back. Let's not skip so far ahead. The stadium went into disrepair. Before the stadium ever stood, there was a brothel. A brothel that was right here. Now it's a church. Why is a church built upon a brothel? Let's take a closer look. Or, the other church I mean. So the brothel was right here. Pointed to the wrong church, my mistake. Let's take a closer look. Here is one of the fountains made by Giacomo. Giacomo was one of the premier Baroque artists, a student of Gian Lorenzo Bernini. This is called the Moor, and Bernini was actually hired to build the Moorish man in the middle. The rest is by Giacomo. Why did he build the Moor? Well, originally the intention was to build Zeus or Neptune. I think it was probably Neptune. It was to build Neptune, but for some reason Bernini built a Moor. People also know as a Ethiopian. Hello, Rosalyn. Welcome. Beautiful piazza, very packed to the brim. People are always here. After Domitian was murdered, the entire piazza, the entire stadium went into disrepair, and the brothel was built here. However, this is one of the most visited churches in all of Rome, St. Agnes. Why was a church built upon a brothel? Well, it was for one very particular reason. We'll see Bernini's work soon as we approach the church. 304 AD, January 21st. A young girl around the age of 16 was forced to walk naked towards the brothel by one of the men under the power of Diocletian, the emperor of that time. This young girl was Agnes. She refused to marry. She was of very high from a very high aristocratic family. And she was very sought after by many suitors. But she claimed that she had only one suitor that she laid her eyes on, and that was Jesus Christ. To say that at that time was still taboo. Christians were still being persecuted. So the people under Diocletian condemned her to die. She was taken naked all the way to this brothel. And in this brothel, she was thrown inside, forced to have sex with men. The men who tried to come in here and rape Agnes. When they approached her, according to legend, she suddenly grew a bunch of hair. Hair just filled her body. And as they tried to violate her, they would instantly glow blind. This worried the powers that be in Rome, and they decided to take her outside, build the stake, and burn her. Right in front of the brothel, she was placed on the fire. However, as they lit up the fire, the flames would fly away. They kept lighting more and more fires. The flame kept flying more and more away. They didn't know what to do. They were getting very frustrated because Agnes, this heretic from ancient Roman times who believed in this Lord Jesus Christ and decided not to marry anyone, she wasn't dying. She wasn't burning. She was only praying. People were looking amazed by this woman not being burned by the fire. One of the executioners got so frustrated, he took his sword and beheaded her. Saint Agnes died a martyr for the Roman Catholic faith. Because of that, only a few decades later, this was deemed a holy place, and they built the very first St. Agnes Church. Many centuries later, during the Baroque era, Borromini, the rival of Bernini, was hired to build the new version of St. Agnes in Rome. However, Bernini, his rival, was hired to build a new facade. So this is one of the very few instances where Borromini and Bernini had to work together. Let's take a look inside of St. Agnes of Rome, because maybe we'll find something interesting. So this is a Borromini and a Bernini. Borromini was the genius who built this church as a concave inside in order to give the piazza more space. However, Bernini had those kind of flourishes all around. Kay says amazing story. Oh, I'm so glad you're enjoying it. So it's said that people still hear the flames burning that were trying to kill St. Agnes while she's here. The reason is because St. Agnes never left the Piazza Navona, modern day Piazza Navona. Let's take a look inside. right here is the remains of St. Agnes of Rome. Her body is still there. You can see her skull. That's the skull of the teenage girl who devoted herself to Jesus Christ and was brutally slaughtered in front of a crowd of hundreds of people. It is, according to legend, that after that brutal murder, 100 of those people were so amazed that they also ended up following Jesus Christ. So this is a church built by Borromini, one of the greatest Baroque architects in the entire era. He's a genius of kind of making these massive scale, taking almost a small footprint of a building, but making it feel huge, monumental. And the perspective painting on the top. Very well known for adding perspective into his buildings. Because Borromini, we have buildings that feel larger than they actually are. Divina, yes, that is Agnes's skull. And since she died on this very place, it probably is her real skull. There's a depiction of St. Agnes and the flames flowing away from her. Beautiful Baroque sculpture right in the action of St. Agnes trying to be burned, but the flames wouldn't touch her. Right here we see Bernini's great fountain depicting the four rivers of the world, of the known world at that time. We have America with the river in South America. We have the Danube in Europe. And then we have the Euphrates for Asia. And we have one more river for Africa. The Nile. Beautiful Baroque sculpture, huge obelisk right on top, imported from ancient Egypt during ancient Roman times. Bernini just decided to put up as the centerpiece of his sculpture. However, if you remember many episodes back when we visited St. Peter's Basilica, Borromini hated Bernini. Bernini, seeing Borromini as kind of a pesky nuisance, also hated him back. And Borromini, just like St. Peter's Basilica, which was about to collapse because Bernini got carried away and did not really look into the proper math, Borromini said that Bernini was guilty of this a second time. That second time was right here with this obelisk. He said that he did not appropriately calculate the weight needed to fortify this obelisk, and that at any moment it will crumble down on all these onlookers. The reason is, this was a very popular spot right after Bernini built this magnificent structure, and Borromini built the church right behind it, because Pope Innocent X would constantly flood this entire piazza. He would plug the drain on the fountains, the 3 fountains that are right over here, and the entire piazza would flood. And this was right during the month of August, kind of continuing this celebration of Augustus, the emperor, the very first emperor of Rome. And people would swim over here. And there's a lot of paintings, a lot of depictions of people kind of swimming and playing in the water here. It would make my head go maybe 2 or 3 feet deep. And that continued all the way to 1866. And since there were so many people visiting here, it was imperative that this structure would be steady. And Borromini said that this was going to fall at any moment. However, Bernini already learned from his mistakes at St. Peter's Basilica, wasn't having it, because he already went through that horrible experience. And Bernini, no matter how much he was arrogant in his early life, quickly sharpened up after that experience and got much more serious. So he ended up getting 4 chariots to tie ropes towards the... Hey, how's it going? tie 4 chariots all around and push against the obelisk. The obelisk did not budge whatsoever. Borromini was ashamed because he was actually proven wrong this time. Borromini, many years later, continued with the streak of feeling jealous and feeling depressed at his contemporaries, laid a sword down in his apartment and fell on it. However, Bernini luckily lived a very long life, and we talked about him briefly before, but one thing I didn't mention was that towards the end of his life, he actually suffered a stroke, and he lost power of his right arm. And for 2 months after that, he continued sculpting. Actually, not 2 months, my mistake. 2 years, he continued sculpting. Only up until 2 weeks right before he died, he sculpted a very last piece all the way in the Palace of Versailles. A huge, beautiful bust of Louis XIV. Luckily, they don't haunt this place because their sculptures are a beauty to look at as we're here. What time is it here? It's on 3:42. Well, time flew by. If you're tuning in, let me know where you're watching from. And if you're enjoying these stories, let me know. Let your friends and family know if they want to learn more about Rome. It is magnificent, I agree. Right now the church bells near you are chiming, so this is perfect. It really is. Look how packed with people it is. Just like that man approached me out of nowhere. I was here last week, shortly after I just landed to Rome, and I really wanted to come to Piazza Navona immediately. And I was strolling here late at night, and on my backside I felt a pinch. I was scared because, I've heard about pickpockets, and I thought I was one of the pickpockets. And I look back, and no one is around me whatsoever. And I just shrugged it off. However, 2 days ago, started researching these stories, the haunted tales of Rome. And I found out that by the time of 304 AD, when St. Agnes was murdered, this wasn't the first brothel that was here. This was the second. For the first one, we have to go way back, way before Domitian ever built his stadium and used massive horse races right here. We have to go back to the time of Emperor Claudius, who took over after the mad Emperor Caligula. Claudius was a bit of an outcast. A lot of his family didn't like him. He had a stutter. He was a nerd, by all means, according to his family, always stuck to his books. And he wasn't the most sociable man, but people really liked him, especially the equestrian class, which was the middle class, and also the Praetorian Guard. After the Praetorian Guard brutally murdered Caligula, they deemed him emperor. And Claudius took over. And luckily, Claudius was a very diligent emperor. However, he divorced his first wife. And then he married his second. The second wife was Messelina. And Messelina was one of the most beautiful women in the entire realm. She was known to be so beautiful that men would just stop in their tracks as she's passing by, utterly fawning over her. Messelina was depicted in a bunch of graffiti all around the city. She was known as being a gorgeous woman. You can think of the gorgeous women we know now today, or the gorgeous women of the 1950s and 60s, like Rita Hayworth. Messelina was like the Rita Hayworth of ancient Rome. And Emperor Claudius married her. However, Messelina was 30 years his junior. She was 20, he was about 50 years old. And while Emperor Claudius went out over to Spain to do some work about building some city over there in Spain, Messelina started sleeping around. According to the accounts of the historians that wrote the histories of the Roman emperor just a few decades later, they said that Messelina was so obsessed with sex. This, mind you, this might be a reflection of how patriarchal was ancient Roman society. So take this with a grain of salt from the ancient Roman historians. But it tells a good story nonetheless, no matter how kind of outdated these ideas might be. Messelina, according to these ancient Roman historians, loved coming to this brothel that was also right here. The very first brothel to be upon this very piazza. She would come there and have sex all night, give free services to men. Apparently she had an insatiable desire. It's so insatiable that one of these men that visited the brothel was a senator by the name of Cyrillus. She fell deeply in love with this senator, and the senator fell deeply in love with her. He had his hands, his arms, he had his entire body over the most beautiful woman in ancient Rome. And they got married. But wait a minute. Wasn't she the wife of Emperor Claudius? She was Augusta. That means she was Empress of Rome. And she married a senator. Claudius was told about this. And Claudius didn't react. He didn't act on it while his Praetorian Guard was compelling him to do something about it. But he was paying attention to his own duties. I don't think Claudius really cared. And Messelina was taken later, without permission from Claudius, taken later by the Praetorian Guard and murdered. Messelina died because there was a rumor spreading that Messelina wanted to deem the senator as emperor. And the Praetorian Guard suspected that there was a plot to overthrow Claudius. This might be true because many years later, Claudius also came to an end. by a plot of assassination. When the news went back to Claudius, he didn't even respond. He wasn't sad. He wasn't pissed off. He didn't mourn. He wasn't happy. He just simply didn't respond. And no one knew why. To this day, people still say that they feel their butts being pinched, especially men, specifically men. Butts being pinched, a woman's hand gliding upon their arms, their hair being slightly touched. However, when these men report these touches, there's no one around. Some have even claimed to see the apparition of a woman blowing them a kiss. This is Messelina, who still lurks around this piazza, still with an insatiable desire for flirtation and sensuality. Maybe that's what pinched me that first day I came here to Piazza Navona. It wasn't a pickpocket, it was a ghost. Davina, maybe that was an ancient flirt ghost who pinched you? Yeah, I think so. I think it was. Here is the Fountain of Neptune. And this is another beautiful fountain made by Giacomo. And Kay, you had your backside pinched twice in Naples. Sophia Loren was another woman who was known for a very beautiful, sexy woman in the world. That's awesome. Donald, I love the TV series I, Claudius. Yes. And Buongiorno de Romania, bellissimo video. Thank you so much. Constantine. Ooh, Constantine, you have a very interesting name. Because we're going to talk about Costanza Conti, for a final ghost of the Piazza Navona. Hello, Marie, welcome. Hello, Corby from Pennsylvania. Hello, Townie Tourist. Oh, Jenny from Sarasota, welcome. We have to travel one day together, make videos together. Jackie. Oh yeah, I read that before. The church bells are ringing. That's amazing. Great coincidence. All right, let's walk a little bit more around. There's one other curse that was placed upon the Piazza Navona. And this apparently was by our very first ghost that we talked about, Olimpia Maidalchini. She cursed this piazza for any lovers who dared to enter, because she herself lost everyone who was dear to her, and the only way she could feel some fulfillment was to steal all their money. She said that any lover that would come here and walk in a clockwise direction would come out breaking up just a few short weeks later. However, if you walk in a counterclockwise direction, you will stay together. So be sure, if you're here with a lover, to walk the right direction. Hello, Natalia. Hello, Patty from Staten Island. So I'm going to take you around the Piazza Navona. I'm not here with a lover, so I have no worries of walking the wrong direction. But when I am, I will be keeping that in mind. And stay tuned, because we're talking about one more ghost in the Piazza Navona, and then we're going to zigzag through the streets of Campo dei Fiori and head there to see a mysterious statue that lingers right in the middle of that piazza. Beautiful cafes. This one's called Bernini. Wonderful stories. Oh, Kathy, I'm so happy you're enjoying them. I love haunted history. Always fun. Now we have these beautiful houses right facing the Piazza Navona. Right around the time of all these stories, around the 1530s, there was a woman who lived, well, two of our stories, Olimpia and Maidalchini, around that time. There was a woman who lived right here. One of these windows, probably that second one right there. And her name was Costanza Conti. Costanza Conti was known for having the most beautiful hands in the entire city. People would constantly come up to her and compliment her on the gorgeous hands. So much so that one sculptor was so inspired by her beautiful hands that he made a sculpture of it that you can still find to this day in the Neapolitanic Museum here in Rome. It's just a simple hand, and it's hers, Costanza Conti. However, one day as she was walking back to her place here at the Piazza Navona, a friar stopped her. No one knows who this friar was. Was he a real friar? Was he an apparition? No one knows, because what that friar told Costanza was deeply worrying. He looked at her hands, but not like most other men looked at her hands, or women. Everyone loved her hands. This man looked worried once he saw her hands. He said to her, "You have the most beautiful hands. It's a shame you're going to lose them." Right straight in her eye. Costanza was absolutely terrified by this prospect because that was her identity. She saw herself as having these gorgeous hands. So she locked herself in her room and just committed herself to a life of sewing. So no one could come close to her hands and she won't lose them, according to this prediction by this mysterious friar. One day she was sewing and one of the needles pricks her finger. Now normally whenever your finger is pricked, you're okay. However, not for Costanza. A few days later, the wound kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Warts started growing all around her arm. She started losing feeling in her arm. And the doctors came and had to say, "We have to amputate it." She was resisting. She thought it was going to heal. But the warts were getting bigger. Pus was coming out. Her arm was diseased. She had a blood infection from that little pinprick on her index finger while sewing. So she relented and the doctors amputated her arm. However, the disease kept spreading up through her arm, all into her body, into her other hands. Costanza was filled with bloody and pussy warts all around, dying just a few short days later. She lost her both hands and subsequently passed away. However, people, whenever they look up at that window, they see something rather interesting. At this window, according to many rumors throughout the centuries since the 1500s, people have said that they've seen a handprint right on that very window. Is that the handprints of the beautiful Costanza Conti? Or is that maybe a little kid playing a prank? No one knows. But still lingers here every so often for an onlooker to see, curious as to why there's a mysterious handprint on the window. That's the ghosts of the Piazza Navona. One more time, let me show it to you, and then let's wiggle our way towards the Campo de' Fiori for our final story. Beware of the Piazza Navona at night. Not because of pickpockets, not because of people trying to haggle you to buy scarves, but because of the ghosts that linger. Olimpia on her great chariots filled with chests of gold. Saint Agnes still praying, murmuring that she's trying to be burned alive. Messelina pinching the butts of male walkers through this area. And Costanza Conti leaving a handprint for people to wonder about. Oh yeah, you're right, Donald. It was a very interesting coincidence. Very interesting coincidence to talk about. Magnificent, magnificent. I'm utterly blown away by this piazza. Menos mal que no sabía la historia cuando fui. So Natalia says, good thing I didn't know the history when I went. Yeah, haunted tales are a double-edged sword. Sabiendo historia de fantasmas no es siempre la mejor cosa, porque a veces uno se asusta cuando viene. Sometimes puts fear in you aside from knowing the interesting ghost story. And you can just imagine the rattling wheels of the horse carriage coming down these cobblestone streets late at night. If you hear that, don't be afraid. There's just Olimpia trying to make a run for it. Pasquino. Good morning, Stephen, and welcome. Nice to see you here. And Bernadette, I'm so happy you think it's intriguing info. So many amazing restaurants and shops all around us. Such a beautiful area of Rome to walk through. We're kind of straddling the neighborhoods of Piazza Navona and Campo de' Fiori. I'm so happy so many people are tuning in. Let me know where you're watching from. Ah, there's a Vespa right there. And a very packed gelateria. Whoa. Scusa. And the weather has been great all around. Scusa, where's Campo de Fiori? That way. Okay, that's it. Okay, so remember, if you're in Rome, it's not always easy to remember exactly where the places are because all the streets are kind of curving into each other. There's no grid system like there is in New York City. So either rely on just wandering around, and you will find your place because it's not so big, the historical center. So you won't get totally lost. You'll eventually bump into it. Otherwise, you can always ask. Hola Liz, desde Tijuana, en México. Gracias por mirando a las 7:12 AM. Bien temprano en Tijuana. Estamos hablando de fantasmas en Piazza Navona y Campo de Fiori. We're exploring the haunted histories of this area of Rome. And Crystal, you enjoy revisiting my favorite vacation by following me. Oh, I'm so happy you're enjoying this. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And let me know, have you ever had a ghostly experience or with an apparition, a spirit, a poltergeist, or have undergone an exorcism? Let me know. Fun fact, over 1,000 exorcisms have been executed in the Vatican in the past few decades. You can find a great interview with one of the main exorcists, the head exorcist actually, of the Vatican. He talks a whole lot in depth about what he did on those frightful days while he was the master of exorcisms. And he said while 70% of them were due to mental illness, a much larger percent, about 10% were actually real. And he said that he has seen things that he'd rather not repeat publicly. Amanda, oh, you personally know a witch. Interesting. And Crystal from Pennsylvania, enjoying revisiting. Oh, amazing. I think I already answered that. And Delia, thanks for taking me to places I wanted to go. Oh, you're so welcome. I'm so happy you're enjoying this. I hope you do come to Rome. It's becoming very accessible to come to Rome. Very, very accessible. Here we have one of the major thoroughfares. And right down there we have El Gesù Church. Gretchen, you had a ghost in Massachusetts when you were 6 or 7, and in Malibu Beach House you heard lots of parties. Rita Hayworth owned your apartment on Rodeo. and Charlieville, and she was a happy spirit. Oh, I'm glad you had an encounter with a happy spirit. Because we are going to have an encounter with the spirit who didn't have quite the happiest ending. He dared to defy the Roman Catholic Church, but ended up subsequently defying 2 Protestant churches. As we approach Campo de' Fiori, which is the place of flowers, the Plaza of Flowers. It used to be an old flower market, but before there ever was a flower market, horrible, horrible things happened right here. It still is a thriving market today, as we see right here. Welcome to Campo de' Fiori, our final stop for this tour. The market is in full swing. Actually, not full swing, it's coming to a close soon. Thanks for sharing your experience with us. Oh, you're so welcome. And here we have Giordano Bruno. A mysterious hooded figure that lingers above the Campo de' Fiori. Most people have no clue who this man is. They don't know who this man is because the church doesn't want you to know who this man is. For that, we have to, again, go back to the mid-1500s. Before this ever was a flower market, this was a place to execute heretics. Giordano Bruno decided to investigate the cosmos. He was very intrigued by the scientific studies that were undergoing shortly before him, the studies of Copernicus, the studies of Galileo. However, he had an interesting insight. He suddenly realized, had a revelation. Was it through magical means? Was it through spiritual means? Or was it through scientific means? For him, it was more of a combination of all 3. He had a revelation due to an ancient Greek myth that the world, that the universe was infinite. And if the universe was infinite, extended with no end in sight, that God was infinite. And if God was infinite, that meant every single being in this planet was infinite. We, in essence, are God, just an extension of God. This was informed by Hermeticism. Hermeticism was an ancient Egyptian belief made by the god Hermes, who first was a man and then became a god. And Hermes believed that we were all divine. We all had a piece of divinity within us. There was no distinction between gods and men because we were the gods, and the gods were men. He was also informed by the Gnostic texts that were slashed away from the Bible. Many centuries before him, there was a council, the Council of Nicaea, and they decided to shorten the Bible, consolidate it. So it won't be this huge, massive text, but it'll be something much smaller. The texts that were cut off were the Book of Thomas, the Book of Enoch, all these other texts that were later found in the Dead Sea Scrolls just about 100 years ago in a little cave off the desert in Jordan. Those Dead Sea Scrolls illuminated the modern world as to what texts were actually removed from history. He somehow had access to these texts. Those texts said the same thing. The universe is infinite. But not only that the universe is infinite, that every single star that we see up in the sky is its own sun, as our sun is the center of our solar system. And surrounding all these suns are worlds, planets. And many of these planets have water and life. to Giordano Bruno, the universe was much larger than we ever expected. He was given the opportunity to speak at Oxford University because he was a fellow person of this new burgeoning field of natural philosophy, of science. Science really took full swing just a few short decades after him. He went over to the lecture in Oxford, and they were appalled because while they did believe that the cosmos was huge, you can't dare say it was infinite. And worse off, you can't dare say that we are just one among countless worlds. This did not bode well with the Calvinists. He went over to Germany, spoke with the Lutherans. This did not bode well with the Lutherans. It was a little bit too heretical for them. So he was banished from 2 different Protestant religions. So why did he come back here to Rome? Because I told you back in Renaissance era Rome, it was very difficult to speak out against the church and to even speak about any science. That was heresy. Galileo suffered through it, Copernicus suffered through it, countless other aspiring scientists suffered through it. However, Giordano decided to come back here anyway. Somehow he thought that this message was so awe-inspiring, as he was so awe-inspired whenever he looked up into the cosmos and saw infinity. He thought that the people would see the light here, that they would see their own infinity within them. No one did, especially the church. The church took Giordano right over here to the Campo dei Fiori. And he was put on a stake and burned alive. Giordano philosophy would be lost for many more decades until the foundations of science were settled by Isaac Newton and the pioneers of the Enlightenment era. As Isaac Newton himself was inspired by Hermeticism, the very same text that Giordano read. Many decades later, as the Enlightenment era is starting to begin and the likes of Isaac Newton start coming out with these new scientific discoveries, the church commissions to build this statue with a hood. He wore a hood most of the time. He was a man of religion, a man of spirituality, but also a man of science. However, he's looking down solemnly, holding a book, which we don't know what book he's holding. It was built right here in the middle of this area where executions would take place in order to remind everyone to not dare defy the church, to speak heresies, saying that we are more than the God that the church deemed was up there and not over here, not inside here. To this day, people still hear Giordano walking with his hood through the area of Campo dei Fiori, wanting someone to see the lights of infinity within them, wanting someone to recognize that the world, the universe, everything is much larger than we ever think it can be. I'm Ariel with Urbanist. If you enjoyed these stories, let me know. Press that heart button. Remember to visit these places and look at it with bright new eyes. And maybe see that this world is much larger, as Giordano said. There's way much more to learn about. Every single stone on these very streets, every single window and brick facade has countless stories to tell. What you think you know in history is only but a tiny, little, minuscule portion, a little grain of sand in the massive beach of countless, infinite grains. I'm Ariel with Urbanist. If you want to lend your support to Urbanist and get access to 360 videos, you can do it right down there. Press that button. Keep exploring, everyone. And always keep being awesome. Because you are all awesome. Keep being awesome and always keep on exploring. Arrivederci, everyone. Ciao, amici. And Giordano, may you rest in peace.